The deal that changed everything. The underground auction house was hidden deep in the heart of Brazil. The room was dark, filled with the scent of sweat, cigars, and something rotten. Rich men in expensive suits sat in rows, their faces half hidden in the dim light. They were here to buy rare and exotic things. Animals, artifacts, even people. James Carter adjusted his jacket, feeling uneasy. He was not like the others. He was an explorer, not a collector. But tonight, he was searching for something different, something worth his time. A loud voice echoed through the hall. The auctioneer, a short man with a scar across his cheek, stepped forward. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "our final item for tonight. A true savage from the depths of the Amazon." The crowd murmured in curiosity. Some leaned forward, excited. Others chuckled, thinking it was a joke. Then, the curtain lifted. A woman stood in the cage, her hands and feet chained. Her long, tangled hair fell over her shoulders. Her skin was covered in dirt and bruises, but her eyes burned with fire. She was wild, unbroken. The auctioneer grinned. "They call her Zara, a true jungle beast, untamed, dangerous, and now, for sale." James felt a strange pull in his chest. This was no ordinary woman. There was something in her stance, something in her gaze. She was not afraid. The bidding started. $5,000. One man called. 10,000, shouted another. The numbers climbed higher and higher. The crowd was eager, like vultures circling their prey. Zara did not move. She did not beg or plead. She simply watched them all, her golden eyes full of hatred. James clenched his fists. "This is wrong. 50,000. The room went silent. All eyes turned to the back, toward James. The auctioneer smirked. 50,000 from the gentleman in the leather jacket. Do we have more? The other men hesitated. It was too much for a savage woman. Going once, going twice. James took a deep breath. What am I doing? Sold. The auctioneer slammed his hammer down. To the brave man in the back. The cage door opened. The guards grabbed Zora's chains, dragging her toward James. She did not resist. She did not fight. She simply let them take her. James stepped forward, looking at her closely. Her face was bruised, but there was strength in her eyes. "You're safe now," he said, his voice low. Zara stared at him. Then she smiled. A chill ran down James's spine. Before he could react, she moved. Fast. With one sharp motion, she broke the chains. The guards barely had time to scream before she attacked. She leaped onto James, knocking him to the ground. Her hands wrapped around his throat, her grip tight like steel. The room exploded into chaos. The auctioneer shouted for the guards. The rich men scrambled away, afraid. James gasped, struggling under her strength, but he didn't fight back. For the first time, he saw something in her eyes. Not just rage, but intelligence. Zara leaned down, her lips close to his ear. And in perfect English, she whispered, "You have no idea what you've done." James's heart pounded. This was no ordinary woman. This was just the beginning. The escape and the chase. The jungle at night was alive. The trees whispered secrets in the wind, and the sounds of insects filled the air like an invisible orchestra. Somewhere in the darkness, she was running. James Carter moved quickly through the dense foliage, his breath steady but his heart racing. He had made a mistake, a dangerous mistake. Zara was gone. She had broken free the moment they reached his temporary jungle camp. The guards he hired had no chance against her speed. In seconds, she had disappeared into the shadows. Now he was chasing her. But deep down, he knew the truth. She wasn't running away. She was leading him somewhere. The hunt begins. James followed the broken branches, the faint footprints in the damp soil. He was a trained explorer, but he was out of his element. This was her world. Suddenly, a low growl echoed through the jungle. James froze. Was that an animal or something else? His fingers tightened around the machete in his belt. The jungle had predators, but right now, Zara was the most dangerous of them all. Then he saw her, standing on a thick tree branch above him, barefoot, silent, watching. Her wild hair framed her face, her golden eyes glowing in the moonlight. She wasn't afraid. She was in control. James took a step forward. "Zara, stop this. You're free now. I don't want to hurt you." She tilted her head, as if considering his words. Then she smiled. A chill ran down James's spine. Without a word, she jumped from the branch, right over his head, and vanished into the darkness. James swore under his breath. He had no choice. He had to keep going. Deeper into the unknown. The jungle grew thicker, harder to navigate. Everything felt wrong. The air was heavy, the silence unnatural. James knew this feeling. He was being watched. Then the torches appeared. One by one, flames flickered to life in the distance. Shapes moved between the trees. James slowed his steps. He wasn't alone anymore. And then they stepped into view. A group of warriors, their faces painted with dark markings, their weapons aimed at him. Zara stood among them. She was smiling. The largest warrior stepped forward, his muscular frame barely covered in animal hide. His eyes were locked onto James, filled with something dangerous. Then, in a deep, commanding voice, he spoke. "Why have you followed her?" James's throat went dry. Followed her. He turned to Zara, realization dawning in his mind. She hadn't escaped. She had led him here on purpose. Before he could react, something struck the back of his head. The jungle blurred. The world tilted. Then, darkness. The jungle's secret and the dark truth. James Carter's head pounded as he blinked himself awake. His arms were tied behind him, his legs bound to a thick wooden post. The rough fibers of the rope cut into his wrists. He was trapped. The jungle was no longer just trees and shadows. It was alive. The scent of damp earth filled his lungs, and the flickering torches painted eerie shapes across the warriors standing around him. Their eyes were cold, unmoving. And then there was Zora. She sat on a stone throne, carved with symbols James couldn't understand. The firelight flickered against her golden skin. She was no longer a captive, no longer a fugitive. She was something else entirely. Something powerful. Her lips curled into a small smile as she leaned forward. "You're finally awake." James clenched his jaw. "If this is your idea of gratitude, I'd hate to see your version of revenge." The warriors around him didn't laugh. They didn't move. The silence was thick, heavy. Then the tribal leader stepped forward. His body was massive, covered in dark paint and scars. His deep voice rumbled through the air. "Why did you follow her?" James hesitated. I didn't. She escaped. I was trying to." Zora tilted her head, cutting him off. "I didn't escape, James. I led you here." A cold wave passed through him. "What? Why?" he demanded. She stood, walking toward him, her bare feet silent on the dirt. The warriors parted as she passed, their expressions unreadable. "You bought me," she said softly, crouching in front of him, like an object, like an animal in a cage. James opened his mouth to speak, but she raised a hand. "I let myself be caught, James. I waited for the right person, someone who could reach this place without being killed on sight. Someone like you." James narrowed his eyes. "What are you talking about?" Zora glanced at the warriors, then at the ancient stone ruins behind them. Symbols glowed faintly in the firelight. The air felt thicker, charged with something unnatural. She turned back to James. "Because the jungle isn't just a jungle. It's a door. And you're standing at the edge of something you can't even imagine." James frowned. "A door to what?" Zora's golden eyes flickered. "A lost world. A forgotten power. And now, you're part of it. The trial of the chosen one. James was untied, but the warriors did not let him leave. He was dragged toward the ruins, where massive stone pillars rose from the ground, covered in ancient carvings. Zara walked beside him, her expression calm. "If you survive the trial," she said, "you'll understand everything." "And if I don't?" James muttered. Zara smiled. "Then you die." The warriors pushed him forward. The ground before him opened into a deep, dark pit. At the bottom, glowing blue mist swirled like liquid light. Symbols carved into the stone pulsed faintly, as if alive. James took a slow breath. "Tell me this is just a test of courage." Zara didn't answer. The tribal leader raised his hand, and the warriors began to chant. Their voices rose in a haunting, rhythmic melody. The mist below began to move. Then something inside it growled. James took a step back. There was something down there. The leader turned to Zara. "The chosen one must prove himself." Zara nodded. "He will." James shook his head. "Wait, chosen one. I didn't choose anything." Zara leaned close. "The jungle chooses, James. You just didn't know it yet." Before he could argue, she placed a hand on his chest. And then, with one strong push, she sent him into the pit. Trials of the Lost Civilization. James Carter had spent years exploring the world, chasing myths, uncovering ruins, and surviving dangers. But nothing had prepared him for this. The mist swirled around him, thick like smoke, glowing with an eerie blue light. The ground beneath him was solid stone, carved with ancient symbols that pulsed like a living heartbeat. And then there was the voice. "James Carter, the jungle has been waiting for you." James spun, his instincts screaming at him to run. But there was nowhere to go. The cavern was massive, its ceiling lost in darkness. In front of him, the mist moved like liquid air, and something stepped forward. A creature, part shadow, part nightmare. It had the body of a beast, tall and powerful, with black fur that shimmered in the glow. Its eyes burned like molten gold. James's breath caught. It wasn't attacking. It was watching. Then the voice returned, but this time it came from inside his own mind. "You have entered the trial of the chosen. Survive, or be forgotten." The ground trembled beneath him. The walls of the cavern shifted, moved, transformed. The trial had begun. The first trial, the river of death. The stone beneath James's feet cracked, and suddenly he was falling. Cold water swallowed him whole. The impact knocked the air from his lungs, and for a moment, everything was silence. Then, pain. The water was not normal. It burned like acid, twisting and pulling at his body. He struggled, kicking upward, fighting against the weight dragging him down. Through the water, he saw shapes, figures, skeletal remains of those who had failed before him. Their empty eye sockets stared back at him as if warning him, "You don't belong here." James gritted his teeth. "Like hell I don't." His lungs screamed for air. His muscles burned. But he forced himself to move. Above him, a faint glow, the surface. With one final push, he broke free. He gasped, pulling himself onto a narrow ledge. His clothes were soaked, his body shaking, but he was alive. Then a soft voice. "Not bad." James turned his head sharply. Zara was standing on a higher ledge, watching him with an amused expression. "You made it past the first trial," she said, "but the jungle isn't done with you yet." The second trial. The shadow beast. James barely had time to catch his breath before the cavern changed again. The water vanished. The walls stretched higher. The mist thickened. And then it appeared. A monstrous shape rose from the shadows, massive and ancient. It had a long, sinewy body, covered in obsidian-like scales that shimmered with unnatural light. Its head was broad, its mouth lined with jagged fangs. It was not a creature of this world. James's blood turned to ice. "Tell me this thing isn't real." Zara smiled. "It's real enough to kill you." The beast lunged. James rolled to the side, barely dodging the massive claws that tore through solid stone like paper. He scrambled to his feet, reaching for his knife. It felt useless. The beast was too big, too fast. He had no weapon strong enough to fight it. Then he remembered the symbols. He looked around. The glowing carvings weren't just decoration. They were part of the trial. He sprinted toward one of the larger symbols, carved deep into the stone. The beast roared behind him, its breath hot against his back. James reached the symbol and slammed his hand against it. A pulse of energy exploded outward. The beast howled in pain, its massive body convulsed, its shadowy form twisting, weakening. James didn't hesitate. He grabbed a loose, jagged rock from the ground and drove it straight into the beast's eye. The creature shrieked. The cavern shook. Then it was gone. James collapsed to his knees, breathing hard. His hands trembled. His heart pounded. And then slow clapping. He looked up to see Zara, smiling. "Maybe you're not as useless as I thought." James glared at her. "Yeah, well, I'll take that as a compliment." She tilted her head. "Good, because there's one last trial left." James swallowed hard. Of course there is. The final trial. The choice that changes everything. The cavern walls parted, revealing a massive stone door. It was old, covered in golden vines and strange markings. In its center, a single, glowing handprint. Zara stepped forward. "This is the final test, James." He frowned. "And what exactly is the test?" She met his eyes, her expression unreadable. "You have to decide," she said. "Step forward, place your hand on the door, and accept the truth of this place." James hesitated. "And if I don't?" Zara exhaled slowly. "Then you walk away, forget everything, and leave this jungle forever." James looked at the door. Something inside of him pulled toward it. The jungle had been waiting for him. The trials, the creatures, the ancient ruins. They weren't just tests. They were calling to him. James clenched his fists. He had spent his life searching for something greater, something beyond ordinary men. Now it was right in front of him. He stepped forward. Zara watched in silence as he reached out, his fingers barely grazing the glowing handprint. The moment he touched it, the world around him changed. A rush of images flooded his mind. Visions of an ancient civilization, of beings that were not human, of a power so great, so dangerous, that it had been hidden away for centuries. James gasped, stumbling backward. His body felt different. Zara smiled, but this time it wasn't mocking. "You passed," she whispered. James stared at his hands. His skin glowed faintly. The jungle was inside him now. Everything had changed, and there was no going back. Betrayal and the revelation. The jungle was never silent. Even in the dead of night, it whispered. Leaves rustling, distant creatures crying, unseen forces shifting beneath the surface. James Carter stood at the center of something ancient, something beyond his understanding. His body still tingled from the moment his hand had touched the stone door. He could feel it now, the pulse of the jungle inside him. Zara watched him carefully. "You feel it, don't you?" she said. James swallowed hard. "What? What did I just do?" Zara's golden eyes gleamed. "You woke something up." The stone carvings around them shimmered with life. The ruins pulsed, symbols glowing in the dim light. The jungle itself seemed to breathe. James had spent years searching for lost civilizations, ancient artifacts, forgotten knowledge. But this was different. This wasn't just a discovery. This was a responsibility. And then, the ground trembled. A deep rumble rolled through the jungle, shaking the trees, sending flocks of birds into the sky. The ruins groaned, as if something inside them was waking up. Zara's expression darkened. "They know." James blinked. "Who knows?" She turned toward him, her jaw clenched. The ones who never wanted this power to return. Before James could react, a war horn echoed through the night. And suddenly, they were no longer alone. The betrayal. From the shadows of the jungle, figures emerged. Dozens of them, warriors clad in dark armor, their faces hidden behind masks made of bone. Their weapons gleamed under the moonlight, blades sharpened for one purpose only. James's heart pounded. Who the hell are they? Zora's voice was calm, but her hands curled into fists. The Keepers. James frowned. You mean the same people who built this place? Zora shook her head. No, they're the ones who destroyed it. The lead warrior stepped forward, his mask painted with crimson streaks. His voice was low and dangerous. You were warned, Zora. You should never have brought him here. James's blood ran cold. Zora had led him here. She had told him he was chosen. But now, standing in front of an army, he realized something. This wasn't just about him passing the trials. Zora had used him. You needed me to open the door, James whispered. That's why you let yourself get captured. That's why you led me here. Zora exhaled, but she didn't deny it. You had to be the one to touch it, she admitted. Only an outsider could. James's jaw tightened. So I was just a key. Zora's gaze didn't waver. You were more than that. But now, you have a choice. The Keepers raised their weapons. The leader spoke again. Step away from the ruins, Zora. Hand over the outsider. This power must remain buried. Zora turned to James. Her expression was unreadable. I didn't lie to you, she said. I told you the jungle was waiting for you. And now, you have to decide. Fight for it, or let them take everything. James's fists clenched. His entire life had been a search for something bigger, something greater. And now, it was standing right in front of him. He could walk away, or he could fight. James took a deep breath. Then, slowly, he reached down and picked up a fallen warrior's blade. He turned to the Keepers, his grip firm. You want to bury the past, he said. Then you'll have to go through me first. The jungle roared. And the battle began. The revelation. The fight was brutal. The Keepers moved like shadows, their attacks swift and deadly. But James was faster, stronger. Whatever he had awakened inside the ruins, it was inside him now. His body moved on instinct, dodging blows, striking back with unnatural precision. The jungle seemed to fight with him. Roots curled around enemy feet, branches snapped at just the right moment. Zora fought beside him, her movements fluid and deadly. Together, they carved through the warriors like a storm. Then, in the chaos, James saw something. The lead keeper wasn't fighting. He was chanting. James barely had time to react before the ground cracked open. A pulse of energy exploded from the ruins, knocking everyone backward. James hit the ground hard, his vision spinning. When he looked up, he saw it. A massive stone monolith rising from the earth, covered in glowing symbols. The energy radiating from it was alive, sentient, and at its center, a doorway. James's breath caught. The jungle wasn't just hiding an ancient civilization. It was hiding a gateway. To somewhere else. Somewhere not of this world. The Keepers scrambled back in fear. Even Zora looked stunned. James slowly got to his feet. His heart pounded. What the hell is this? He whispered. The lead keeper, still kneeling, raised his head. His voice was laced with terror. You've opened the path to the forgotten realm. James's pulse thundered in his ears. He had come looking for a lost civilization. Instead, he had found something far greater. And now, there was no turning back. A life-changing decision. The jungle was no longer just a jungle. The air crackled with unseen energy, pulsing from the massive stone monolith that had risen from the earth. Symbols glowed across its surface, shifting and rearranging as if they were alive. At its center, a doorway. But this was no ordinary door. James Carter could feel it, pulling at him, calling to him. The space within the archway didn't show what was on the other side. It was just emptiness, a swirling void of deep black and shimmering blue stretching into the unknown. And then came the whisper, "Come." James's chest tightened. The voice was not human. The jungle around them had gone silent, as if it too was afraid of what had just been unleashed. The keepers, those who had tried to stop him and Zara, were no longer fighting. They were kneeling, their foreheads pressed to the ground, murmuring prayers in a language James didn't understand. Zara stood beside him, her golden eyes locked on the doorway. "You've done it," she whispered. "It's open." James swallowed hard. His hands trembled, but not from fear, from something deeper. He could feel it inside him now. Something had changed. Something had awakened. The final choice. James turned to Zara. "What's on the other side?" Zara's face was unreadable. "The truth." "That's not an answer." She exhaled, running a hand through her wild hair. "No one knows. The civilization that built this place. They didn't vanish." James's heart pounded. "They went through." Zara nodded, and never came back. The thought sent a chill down his spine. James had spent his life chasing the unknown, pushing past the limits of human discovery. And now he stood at the edge of something that no explorer before him had ever seen. A doorway to another world. But stepping through meant leaving everything behind. His past, his life, his world. James clenched his fists. "So that's it. I walk away. Pretend this never happened." Zara tilted her head. "You could." She nodded toward the keepers. "They will seal the gateway again. You will leave. You will forget. And this place will stay hidden for another 1,000 years. James turned back to the monolith. The symbols flickered, shifting patterns forming images, visions. A city in the sky, built on floating islands. A creature with 6 eyes, towering over an army. A man stepping through the same doorway, and returning as something else. James's breath hitched. He had spent years searching for lost secrets, ancient civilizations, hidden truths. And now, the greatest secret of all stood right in front of him. He had one choice to make, the decision that changed everything. James turned to Zara, his eyes steady. "You're coming with me," he said. Zara blinked. "What?" "You've been searching for this just as long as I have," he said. "You knew it was real. And you led me here because you knew I was the only one who could open it." She crossed her arms. "So," James grinned. "So, let's see what's on the other side." For the first time, Zara hesitated. She had been fearless from the moment he met her. Wild, untamed, confident. But now, standing in front of the unknown, even she looked uncertain. James extended his hand. Together. Zara studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she reached out and took his hand. The jungle roared. The symbols on the monolith flared with blinding light. The doorway pulsed. The whisper returned, stronger this time. "Come." James and Zara stepped forward. And together, they walked through. A new beginning. A life transformed. The world they had stepped into was impossible. James Carter had spent years exploring the earth, uncovering forgotten civilizations, walking through the ruins of lost empires. But nothing, compared to this. The sky was not a sky. It was alive, shifting, endless. Stars blinked in strange patterns, spiraling like living constellations. The air hummed with an energy he could feel but not explain. And beneath his feet, the land floated, massive islands of rock suspended in the void, connected by glowing bridges of light. James and Zara stood on the edge of a cliff, gazing into the unknown. Zara exhaled slowly. "We made it." James turned to her, his pulse still racing. "Yeah, but where exactly is here?" She didn't answer. Because the truth was, they had no idea. And then the wind spoke. "Outsiders. At last, James spun, his hand on his knife. Zara reached for her spear. But there was no one there. Only the shifting air, the glowing pathways, the deep hum of the strange, living sky. Then, the ground beneath them moved. The first encounter. From the mist, they emerge. Figures, tall and slender, their skin shimmering like metal, their eyes glowing like molten gold. Their bodies seemed almost weightless, moving with unnatural grace. James tensed. They weren't human. The tallest of them stepped forward. Its voice wasn't spoken aloud. It echoed inside their minds. "You have opened the gate. After all these years, the door has been breached." James's heart pounded. "Who are you?" The being tilted its head. "We are the keepers of the Forgotten Realm. And you are the first to set foot here in 1,000 years." James exchanged a glance with Zora. "That's not possible. There were others before us." The keeper's golden eyes pulsed. "Yes, and they never returned." A chill ran down James's spine. The keeper raised a long, slender hand and pointed toward the floating structures in the distance, massive ruins, pulsing with ancient energy. "Your world has forgotten the truth, but here, the past is still alive." James frowned. "What past?" The keeper's voice turned almost mournful. "The past you were never meant to remember." And suddenly, memories that were not his own flooded James's mind. Visions of the forgotten. James stumbled back as the visions hit him like a wave. He saw a city in the sky, where beings of great power once walked as gods. He saw a war that tore through time itself, shattering reality. He saw humans kneeling before something vast, something beyond comprehension. And then he saw himself, standing in the ruins, holding a glowing artifact. The vision faded. James gasped for breath. Zara steadied him, her brow furrowed. "What just happened?" James's voice was shaky. "I saw something. I saw myself here." The keeper's gaze did not waver. "Because this is not your first time here, James Carter." The words hit him like a punch. James clenched his fists. "That's impossible." The keeper stepped closer. "Is it? The final revelation." Zara took a step forward. "What do you want from us?" The keeper exhaled, a sound like wind through ancient trees. "We do not want. We only wait. The question is, why did you come?" James's mind was racing. Why had he come? To uncover lost knowledge? To prove himself? Or had something inside him always known he was meant to be here? Zara turned to him, her golden eyes searching his face. "James." He looked at her, and in that moment, he understood. This wasn't just an adventure. This was destiny. James straightened, meeting the keeper's gaze. "We came to learn the truth." The keeper nodded. "Then step forward and claim what has always been yours." The air around them shifted. The glowing pathways began to rearrange, forming a new path leading deeper into the unknown. James turned to Zara, a slow smile spreading across his face. "You ready for this?" She smirked. "I was born ready." Together, they stepped forward. And with that, their journey truly began.